Oi, Steven, what the hell are we wearing? Don't know. She said I'll need her to suit. Yeah, the ceremonial armor from Concha's temple, not Psycho Colonel Sanders.
So the other day I just finished rewatching Moon Knight season one, and again, it's absolutely incredible seeing the number of practical costumes that is on the show because again with these superhero stuff sometimes it can go away one or the other. So for you, what was the most challenging to get right, and can you take us through that process of adapting so many of these looks?
It wasn't, I mean, with Oscar, it was great. He was very collaborative and we talked about everything, and all the actors were very collaborative. I think Steven, it took us we had it in the first kind of fitting, but we finessed it in the second fitting. So that was something that was a lot of fun to do. I flew to New York and fit Oscar, and we really only worked on Steven and Mark, and we worked through a lot with Steven in the first fitting. And I said, oh, do we have a little time for Mark? And literally the third costume we put on, we're this is Mark. He's this is him. We've got it. So Steven, we just wanted to make sure those details were great because his character lives in London in this area of Brixton, and we wanted to make sure that it's a cool area, but we didn't want to make him too cool. So it was what was the balancing point to make it interesting character, but not too cool. And then for Ethan's character, Arthur Harrow, I definitely had a very long conversation with Ethan about how we both saw the character and how we could collaborate, and I fashioned that after a mix between a cult leader and a religious figure, and it was just great to collaborate with Ethan. And I showed him my ideas, and he was liking so many of them, and then finessing that, and the finessing of that was simplifying. And then with Layla, with May, it was very important to us that we're representing an modern Egyptian woman. And so just the revolution that has happened there, and making sure that we are representing this person who this character hasn't lived in Egypt for a while, but representing that woman was important to make sure that we were crossing all of those characters.
انتي سوبر هيرو مصرية؟
Well, on the subject of the Scarab costume, were there, again, I don't know how many designs it went through, before, because I know in the comics, it's a very, very different look. But were there any conversation about trying to make it as close as possible to them, or was it kind of just no? I mean, we will use the name, but maybe we're just not going to stick so much with what originated in the comics, X amount of years ago.
With that, Scarlet Scar went through a lot because obviously it's different from the comic and it's not a man and just stuff like that. So it went through a lot of renditions, and also even when we started, I started building the costume, and we're there's a couple of points that are just it's just not, maybe it can be better. It could be we could touch it up. We could make it a little bit more, because I was always trying to put in more Easter eggs and in more things. And also once you start working with the actors, you see what they're training, what fight training they've gone through and what movements they have to do. So you want to help enhance that and build it into the costume. So there was discussions of taking the inspiration from the comic and then really adapting to that. And so I'm really excited about how it turned out, and the reception from the fans and stuff has been really fantastic because of the way what we did.
Yeah. I mean, it's still the line when when the girl is asking her, are you an Egyptian superhero? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, look at her. She's killing that look. I have to ask because, again, I know with only 6 episodes, there's only so much you guys can do. But was there ever any conversation or any looks in your mind of what Jake Lockley's costume could have looked like? Was it kind of oh, what if we had another episode? This is kind of what we wanted to do, or do you have a design in your mind what it would have looked like based on the source material that we have?
So with Jake, it was only ever that one little Easter egg. We were never going beyond that. So it was really important for me to make sure that I was nailing it for Jake in kind of that iconic moment. So I took a similar silhouette of what he is in the comic, and he's in the bomber jacket and the hat. And so I'm well, I need to do it to modernize it. So I used a Japanese raw denim fabric, and then put a little Easter egg in that. But it was more about let's just make the audience know this is who this character is. But there was never a discussion of building him into the world any more than that. for all those people wondering about the season 2, I guess. So.
Yeah. Well, on that note, because I think because listen, the fans they get curious when they see these things. When the news came out about the Blu-ray for Moon Knight, they were like, oh, the complete first season, huh?
Oh.
So I have to ask you: have you heard anything about a potential second season at all?
No, it's people have been asking me, and maybe that's why, because of the complete first season of the Blu-ray. But no, I've heard nothing. I've heard nothing about it.
Have you looked? Are there any other looks that you want to adapt from? Again, I don't know how much you've jumped into the Moon Knight comics after having worked on this, but are there other looks that you're like, oh, well, if there's a season 2, I would like to adapt this or this or that? If you could share about that.
I think it all depends on what the story would be, because so many times when shows say that they're only doing like one season or whatnot, and then they come back, something about the story changes so much, or a new character is incorporated that is not maybe necessarily thought of. So listen, if they do a season 2, I am on board. I loved it so much, but I haven't gotten any phone calls.
Is there any chance we might see you working on something other Marvel related? Again, like, is there any other projects you might be involved with coming up soon, or is Kevin Feige gonna aim his snipers at us if we talk about it?
I am not doing any at the moment. I've talked to them a couple of times about things, but there's nothing at the moment.
So outside of the world of Marvel, what are you working on right now? Is there anything you can share about that you could talk about?
Yeah, so I have a movie out right now called Civil War by Alex Garland. So I did that film. I did that film right after Moon Knight. Actually, I was interviewing for it while we were filming in Jordan. So I did that right after. And then I have a TV series with Regina King, Jeff Daniels, Lucy Liu, Diane Lane, Tom Pelphrey, called A Man in Full, that is premiering on May 2nd. And currently I'm on an HBO miniseries with the same creator of Mare of Easttown. He's doing a new show. And
then finally, just asking you directly, when you see your work getting, recreated through cosplay and so on, like how surreal does that get of, like, oh my god, like, these fans are they're using this and this and that to create these looks that I worked on?
I mean, the cosplayers are where it's at. They know how to do fabric manipulation and 3D printing and molding, and I'm just always so impressed, and also so impressed from the fans that like see every little detail and Easter egg that I think maybe no one is going to notice. So I've been to Comic-Con a couple times, and I've done some panels, and it's just been so phenomenal. I did one after Moon Knight, and there was a lot of Moon Knight, and there's also been some Layla and Scarlet Scarab, and there's even been an Arthur Harrow, and so that's all like phenomenal. Like, it's really cool to see how excited people get.
Like, even with the cane and everything, okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you again so much for your time, and again, congrats on. I mean, again, as a comic book, I mean, look behind me. I'm a comic book nerd, so like, when I see these things coming to life, it is absolutely amazing. And what you and your team did was, again, I'm hoping to see these costumes back in the MCU very, very soon. I hope you get to work on more things. I was looking at it today thinking, like, oh, what would she do with Shadow Knight? Like Mark's brother. From I mean, even though he's dead, he's a comic book show. He could come back. Who knows? So I would love to see what you would do with that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, all right. You know what? I think you can take this one, Mark.
Hurry up, idiots!